Good morning, big girls. I have what is probably my favorite video to make each year, simply because it just gets people mad. And the video is a list of 5 players that I just simply wouldn't sell for just about anything in Dynasty. And then everyone comes in, you would sell if someone gave you 10 firsts. Like, yeah, some of these fucking players I would sell if someone offered me 10 firsts. The point of this list is to have fun. Sometimes you just want to put your nuts on the table and say, this is my fucking guy. I want to see it through, all right? You could play Dynasty for fun and not just as a portfolio numbers game and say, I love this player. He went to my alma mater. I was watching him and he popped off the screen. I just think he is him. And I want to see that career through for better or worse, all right? I've only made this video once, and I don't remember if it was last summer or 2 summers ago. And I remember making it, and on the list, I had Travis Etienne, I had Kyle Pitts, and I had Kadarius Toney, right? And I'm not sitting here telling you that these are the guys that you can't trade away for anything. I'm simply yapping about the guys that I am currently obsessed with, that if you are in a Dynasty League with me, and you try to trade for these players from my teams, you will have to offer me something that makes my jaw drop. You will have to offer me something that makes my pants drop. You will have to offer me something that makes me do something crazy in public, in a setting in which a Dynasty Fantasy Football trade offer should never make you do, okay? That is the point of this fucking video. It's the guys that I like. I will give you reasoning behind them, and maybe it will sway your opinion on whether or not you like these guys. But these are dudes I love, right? So looking back at ETN, that was probably a good call because that was when his value was relatively low. Kyle Pitts was a guy that came to my Falcons. He was young. He was a very high startup pick. Obviously, I wanted to see if he turned into the GOAT. That hasn't worked out, though his value somehow really hasn't fallen off in startup drafts. Kadarius Toney, absolute flop piece. But Kadarius Toney was just so fucking fun. If he worked out, I would be hyped to have him on my team, all right? So I let him rot on my bench now in some of my leagues, although I did fucking scam Toney. I gave Kadarius Toney, ironically, and Rashad Bateman for Amari Cooper, so that worked out. Shout out to you, Tony. I know you're editing this video. You to go. The point is, some guys I just want to watch make the world burn. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to go down with the ship. And that's what this video is, all right? Some of them are really good, and you're not looking to trade for them already. But some of them are just guys that I feel an affinity to, and I've probably talked about some of them this offseason already, but I'm ready to tuck my shirt in and get fucking ripping. How you doing? How we doing? Celsius fucking stinks, dude. The more I drink these, the more disgusted I am with myself. I don't know how these things became popular, but I know how Amon-Ra St. Brown became popular by being really fucking good at football and really good at fantasy football. And he is the first player up on this list, okay? And he has improved year over year over year. And this is obvious, right? This is extremely obvious. Like, if you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, no one's coming incorrectly for a trade offer. He's just the guy that I want as a staple of my team for the next 5 years, minimum, okay? There's just not a price that's within the sphere of reasonable that you might put onto a trade calculator website and be like, oh, he offered me this, and the trade calculator actually says that I win by 250 value points. I don't give a fuck about your value points. I want Amon-Ra St. Brown on my teams because I would like to win fantasy football games, okay? And that's what Amon-Ra St. Brown does for you, especially in Dynasty, year over year over year. He's improved year over year over year, and he hasn't even had his age 25 season yet, okay? They just extended their quarterback, Jared Goff, and those two have amazing chemistry, all right? Which, to me, tells me that we're going to have some very clean stability for the next 4 years of that contract. And he plays a position that makes you feel like, as a slot guy, like you're missing out on like hypothetical or theoretical upside that alphas on the outside like Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson can get to that he really can't. But with the way that Dynasty has kind of moved and just looking at the overall game of Dynasty Fantasy Football, most leagues value wide receivers really heavily, where you're starting many more wide receivers than you are running backs or tight ends. And most of them are full PPR leagues. And a lot of them are tiered PPR, where wide receivers in general, especially ones that catch a lot of passes, are far more valuable than contemporary other wide receivers around them, as well as other positions. So with the way that most leagues are set up now and going forward, I think Amon-Ra becomes one of the most prized possessions in all of fantasy football. And he's not a dude that relies on speed or size or athleticism or any of those things that tend to have a very, very steep cliff when it comes to a fall off. So I think this dude is going to age really well just as a player and a person. His family is like known behind the scenes for being like absolutely health nuts. So he takes care of his body really, 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 really well. All right. He's not a guy that takes like a very high percentage of hits, like, like Tyler Lockett-esque, where it's get the ball over the middle, see the gaps, fall down, move on to the next play, right? He's also developed, like when he came out of college, he was a fantastic zone guy, knew where to find the soft spots in the zone, wasn't an elite man separator by any stretch of the imagination, but he has developed like by leaps and bounds in terms of separating versus press coverage and man coverage and refining his routes. And that's what happens when you get a guy that takes the game of football fucking seriously and you want to be great. And that's where Amon-Ra St. Brown is. All right. When you look at the numbers, total route wins, number 5 in the NFL. Routes versus man, number 3 overall in the NFL. So the volume was there. And win rate versus man coverage, number 5 in the NFL. Okay. This is perplayerprofiler.com. If you go check out his RP profile, that also echoes the same sentiment that he has improved year over year over year as a man coverage separator. Like he's top 10 in yards after catch per reception. So he's someone that you get the ball into his hands and he moves really well, obviously, and he picks up a lot of stats for you after the fact. And interestingly enough, I'm looking at Amon-Ra St. Brown, and he took a big jump up in touchdowns last year, right? He scored 10 of them after scoring 11 combined in his first 2 seasons, right? 5 and then 6 and then jumped up to 10. What's interesting is this. He had 33 red zone targets last year in total, which was tied for the 9th most amongst wide receivers, but he had just 5 end zone targets. So 5 targets that actually came in the end zone. Pause. That was tied for 46th in the NFL. Amongst dudes that he tied with, Cedric Tillman, Nick Westbrook-Akini, Cedric Wilson. Anytime you start getting into like the Cedrics territory, you're not in good territory with fantasy wide receivers, okay? So while he scored a lot of touchdowns, imagine if that number just doubles. Instead of 5 end zone targets, he sees 10 or 12 or 14. And I know you're not probably going to be the number 1 end zone target with guys like Sam Laporta and the amount that they run down there, Gibbs, Demont, whatever. But like scoring 10 touchdowns with just 5 end zone targets, I don't see a reason why that can't just be a staple. I don't see a reason why that can't be the norm and not the actual outlier for Amon-Ra St. Brown if that number starts to jump up, the number of end zone targets. All right, so it's not a hot take to say how elite he was last year, but we haven't seen his ceiling, I think, plus his youth, plus the position, how I think he's going to age. He's just untradeable to me. So piggybacking off that, right, we're talking about these young wide receivers, and while Amon-Ra St. Brown has done it year over year over year, Garrett Wilson, on the other hand, has really not to his capability, okay? He was a dude that back in college, everyone tried to figure out these Ohio State wide receivers, and to me, it was clear as fucking day. When you watch a tape, there was, they were all great. They've all been very good, but the one dude that jumped off the film was Garrett Wilson. And he's the dude that I just need to see through. If I have him on my dynasty teams, like the fact that he's been able to go back-to-back years, getting over 1,000 yards, seeing 170 targets last year with the type of quarterback play that he's endured through, again, I just got to see him through. I got to see Garrett Wilson through. Like, looking back at last year, he had a 67.9% catchable target rate, which was 65th in the NFL among wide receivers. In 2022, that number was down at 63.9%, which was 92nd among NFL wide receivers. It's just target accuracy, catchable target rate is amongst the worst in the NFL. His air yard share last year, just the percentage of air yards that went to a single player on the team, was 42.7%, 3rd in the NFL. Unrealized air yards, meaning the amount of air yards that did not actually convert into real productive receiving yards, like his actual stats, 992, 4th highest number in the NFL, okay? In 2022, that number was 837, 6th highest in the NFL. So when you look at what he did last year versus the expected fantasy points per game, he scored 12.5 fantasy points per game, which was 32nd amongst wide receivers. Expected fantasy points per game last year, over 20, which was number 6 in the NFL. Expected means like based on the targets, based on the value of the targets, end zone targets, deep targets, all the targets and volume, whatever that you got, this is what we expected. But because the targets were so low value, because they were so inaccurate, that's not what it turned into. Now, obviously, we have Aaron Rodgers, right? And Aaron Rodgers has always been a dude who's hooked on to his number one wide receiver like a fucking drug, and that's going to be Garrett Wilson this year. So now we get a dude who has, right? It's not like Garrett Wilson where Garrett Wilson had 170 targets last year, right? For like a guy like Drake London, who's had 100, 105, 107 targets, 110 targets. We are projecting him to jump up from 105 to 140, 50 to be the alpha this year. Garrett Wilson, we've already seen the offense completely run through him. We just needed more accurate quarterback play. So I don't think there's any reason why Garrett Wilson can't get to like that prime Stephon Diggs type dynasty fantasy value, all right? He is one of 10 wide receivers since the year 1990 to have 1,100 yards as a rookie. And of those 10, the only 5 wide receivers to follow that rookie year up with more than 1,000 yards again, Michael Thomas, OBJ, Randy Moss, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. Okay? That was an insane list. I can repeat that for you, or you guys can just go back like 5 seconds and read it again. But point of this whole thing is with even borderline QB play, like I'm not expecting Rodgers to get back to MVP form, but he's not going to be Zach Wilson form, okay? I just think Garrett Wilson at the age of 23 is going to go nuclear, and then you are going to be unable to buy him next year, all right? So if he goes for 170 targets this year, if he goes for 1,500 yards, if he scores 8 to 10 touchdowns this year, he will be unbuyable in Dynasty Fantasy Football going into next year. Garrett Wilson, I need to see one season with a real quarterback to do anything in terms of moving him off of my team. And I know there's a lot of Dynasty talk. If y'all are craving more Dynasty leagues, we are organizing them for you in the Discord. Very easy. We'll put a little tutorial video in here, which you could skip. We've always got timestamps in the videos, but we're organizing them for you in the Discord. The Discord is free to join. All of the Dynasty leagues themselves have buy-ins, so you're competing against people within the BDGE audience, and it's real money. So obviously people are trying. I know everyone's craving to do 6 new startups every single summer, so we wanted to organize that for y'all. All right, moving down, wide receiver list. Again, I have Nico Collins, the Houston Texans, I believe, #1 wide receiver over Stephon Diggs. I think he has a chance to be legitimately like a super elite player in this league. I don't think last year was fluky. I don't think last year was built upon lucky long plays or this convergence of whatever the fuck you want to say it. I think he's attached to a super accurate quarterback with elite route running ability. And when I think about CJ Stroud and just the build of that offense, I'm old enough to remember those like Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb years back in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers, man. And they were both like top 6 fantasy wide receivers. So this is no knock on Tank Dell. Love that dude as well. I think Diggs will be fine this year, but it's a 1-year contract. He'll be out. Nico Collins, I think because it took him a little while to break out, people might look at him as a bit of an older player. Right now, Nico is younger than Jalen Waddle. He is younger than Devonta Smith. He's a year younger than Ayuk. He's younger than T. Higgins, a year and a half younger than Michael Pittman. He's just a year older than Rashee Rice and Jaden Reed. And I know sometimes it feels like you're buying in too late on Nico, but I actually feel like you're probably buying in early. Like this is where if Bitcoin's at like 30,000, you're like, fuck, I should have bought at 5 and now it's at 30. I think by next year, we're going to be looking at Nico solidifying himself again as a dude that can consistently go over 13, 14, 1,500 yards with one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league. And at that point, again, also probably unbuyable. So Nico's a dude that if I have him on my team, I need to see this year through again. Okay, let's move off of the wide receiver position. We've got 2 more left. We've got a QB and a tight end. Actually, I'll just go into the tight end because I've talked a ton about Trey McBride on the Redraft channel. If you guys are not subscribed to the Redraft channel, that is where the majority of content going forward will be going up. We'll keep putting out videos on the Dynasty channel here and there, but our attention mainly shifts over to the Redraft channel. So go subscribe to that. The link will be down below. But I've talked a lot about Trey McBride on there because he's actually my tight end 1 in Redraft this year. I think all the top guys are kind of in a tier together, but McBride, as it relates to Dynasty, is a dude that I think has as high of a ceiling at the position as anyone, including Sam Laporta. He was the first tight end taken in his draft. He was the Mackey Award winner. And last year, like the first year in the league, was a wash, right? The rookie year just didn't pan out how we wanted to. Going into the second year, for whatever reason, Zach Ertz was playing over Trey McBride. For, that first half of the year, we were like, when the fuck is Trey McBride going to get the chance to kind of rip? And then week 7 was Ertz's final game as a Cardinal. From week 8 through 18, Trey McBride outscored Sam Laporta. He outscored George Kittle and Travis Kelce and all of them in that time frame. He was the best fantasy tight end once Zach Ertz left the team. And I expect that to continue going into next year because of the chemistry that him and Kyler have together, especially in the red zone, is unmatched, okay? For one, Trey McBride had the single highest target rate amongst tight ends last year, 26.1%. He led all tight ends in yards per route run. He caught 73.3% of his targets in traffic. Also number one among NFL tight ends that saw at least 7 of those types of targets. And I think that is why the chemistry was built so quickly between him and Kyler Murray, because he trusted him in those tight area situations, knowing that this man's hands are strong as fuck and he's coming down with the ball. And I think that's where the chemistry built, and that is why he's going to trust him going into next year, despite obviously Marvin Harrison coming in. He's going to take a lot of targets and be a great player, but I think it just lifts the offense because that offense is moving more smoothly. I honestly think if McBride scored 2, 3, 4 more touchdowns than he did last year, we would objectively all be talking about him as the tight end one. He was 5th in yards after the catch. He was 5th in target separation. And yeah, like I said, Marv's getting added to the mix and he'll be an elite wide receiver for a long time. But like Hollywood's gone, Rondell Moore's gone, Zach Ertz is gone, some other randos are also gone. And there's like 230 targets up for grabs in that offense just this year. Okay. Like if you have McBride, it feels like you have this generation's like Greg Olsen, Zach Ertz just kind of sitting in your lap that you'll be able to enjoy for the next 6 or 7 years. So I'm just not moving Trey McBride. All right. And as we move down the list, this one's a little bit of a spicier take because I think he's easily movable. He's not someone that you need to offer a shitload of capital for, at least relative to like the amon-ras, the Garrett Wilsons, those types of players. But I actually have Will Levis on this list, the quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. The reason that I don't think he's unmovable to the world. He's just someone that if he's on my team, I need to see this year. I need to see this year play out before I move him because I think the upside is 1,000% there. He's a very athletic quarterback that will have sneaky rushing upside. He's a very strong arm quarterback that can fucking unleash balls down the field. And when I look at how this team is built, everything around Will Levis this offseason, it gets me excited, right? They signed Calvin Ridley, 4 for 92. Regardless of how we feel about Calvin, like you're still adding a rock-solid wide receiver 2, 1-ish to the offense. They add Tony Pollard. They add Lloyd Cushenberry on the line. They've been drafting offensive linemen year in and year out now. So it's like they are building this offense to make sure that he can succeed or figure it out. They got rid of Mike Vrabel. They got rid of Derrick Henry, which means that their like lopsided run-first approach over the last decade is gone. They bring in former Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan. Okay, I think this is going to be a completely different offense than we're used to seeing out of Tennessee, and it's going to run through Will Levis, right? Again, they drafted Peter Skoronski top 10 last year. This year, they doubled down on offensive line. Again, I love his athleticism. He actually ranked 2nd last year in deep ball catchable pass rate. Nearly 58% of his deep balls down the field, 20-plus yards down the field, were catchable, which was number 2 among quarterbacks, all right? So I'm aware there's likely a change at QB if he flops, but it's okay to have fun in fantasy football, and Levis is a prospect that I think is fun and that I want to see push through. All right. So I'm not giving him up for anything that's of value. I'm not giving him up for an even trade plus a second. I want to see Will Levis. I want to see him succeed. And if you have him and he does succeed, the upside is fucking tremendous. So he's the last player up on this list. All right. So if I have any of these 5 players, amon-ra, Garrett Wilson, Nico Collins, Trey McBride, Will Levis, and they're on my Dynasty team, you just ain't getting them off. You just ain't getting them off for anything less than fucking 10 firsts. Enough. All right. Drop in the comments down below who you are not trading for anything less than the most unreasonable shit you've ever heard in a Dynasty fantasy football trade. While you're down there, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed. There will be a ton of Dynasty content throughout the rest of the summer, but also obviously next offseason as we prepare for next year's rookie draft. So subscribe now so you don't forget, and then go subscribe to the redraft channel because we'll be putting out 5-6 videos a week starting very, 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 very soon. I'm out here. I love you. Mwah.
Hello, beautiful people. Today, I'm just going to be showing you how to join the BDGE Discord and a BDGE Dynasty League. First of all, to join the Discord, very simple. Just go to any one of our Dynasty videos on YouTube, scroll down to the description, and boom, right there. Click on this one right here, Discord. Simple as that. Now, once you are in the Discord, you're going to see a lot of channels. Don't get discouraged. It doesn't matter what channel you're in. All you have to do to join a Dynasty League is type in /join-league. You can even just see it here, the command. Click on that. A little message will pop up. Only you can see this. Hit join. and then it will add you to a league, and you'll get a little notification that you got added to that league. You'll see here, you can see which one I got added to. Added to Dynasty League 2. I'm in this group chat now, and you should be able to see a message from most likely myself that is the invite to the Sleeper League as well as to the League Safe. You can, if you can't see them, just hit the pin messages. It should come up there. It'll be easier to find. So make sure you join those as fast as you can, because otherwise your league mates will be like, where the fuck is this guy? He's not in the league. And it'll be confusing to figure out which one is the person who's not in the league. If you do change your mind, however, you don't want to be in the league anymore, just type in the command /leave, and then you have to put your group chat in your Dynasty League 2, do that command, and boom, you are no longer in that channel. Yeah, simple as that. Very easy. If you ever need a refresher on what to do, go to the Join BDG Dynasty League channel, and I got a full list of how to join, leave, everything. And it has all the bylaws too. All right, that's all. Peace.